Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be looking into why I feel the crossbow wielding Daryl Dixon has been getting progressively worse as a character during the last few seasons. As always, there will be spoilers for the show, so please don't watch this video unless you are up to date with The Walking Dead. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Now before I start to dive into the real content of this video, I firstly want to point out that I do like Daryl. In fact, I'd think you'd be hard pressed to find many Walking Dead fans who actually dislike the guy. Despite this, I think that when you look at his actions during the last couple of seasons, I can't help but feel that the writers really are doing him a great disservice. To me, he's gone from being Rick's reliable wingman to a dude who keeps making stupid decisions one after the other. Like I said, I like Daryl, but the show is making it really hard for me to continue to like him. Even though he was introduced as a bit of a hothead when he first burst onto the scene, The Walking Dead quickly made a point of illustrating that there was more to him than may have initially met the eye. He is repeatedly presented as a skilled fighter, an expert tracker, and is more intelligent than a lot of people give him credit for. As the show progressed, he went on to become an integral character to the point where Rick even considered him as his brother. Contrast the Daryl of old to how he is now, and it's obvious Daryl just hasn't been himself lately. He's rash, cold, and his decision making for all intents and purposes has been pretty damn awful. Of course, there is narrative reasoning behind this, as Norman Reedus himself has been quoted as saying that Daryl is on the warpath and fully set on getting revenge. I'll admit this is kind of understandable, seeing as he was imprisoned by the Saviours and did witness Glenn and Abe die in a brutal fashion, but to have his character do a complete 180 just doesn't feel right. In addition, I would also argue that Daryl's dumb decision making actually started before the Saviours arrived, so for me this argument doesn't quite cut it. For instance, in Season 6, Daryl stupidly let Denise go outside the walls with him on a supply run. Bear in mind that Denise had no combat experience and spent most of her time post-apocalypse safe inside the confines of Alexandria, and I think that Daryl really should have known better than to let her go outside. Yes, I know that Denise said to Daryl and Rosita that if they stopped her she would have gone outside anyway, so perhaps they felt it was safer to accompany her than to let her go alone, but come on, this is Denise we're talking about. To me it just seemed like she was bluffing. Her intention was to try to guilt trip the pair into taking her with them. I honestly don't think she would have left Alexandria on her own. I mean, for starters, even if she did decide to go it alone, she more than likely wouldn't have known where the hell she was going outside the walls anyway. I guarantee that after a couple of minutes of meandering around aimlessly, she would have turned back and returned to her home. Whilst I know that Daryl wasn't the one to kill Denise, Dwight did say that he was trying to aim for Daryl and accidentally missed his target, firing an arrow through her eye socket. You could argue that as Denise was an adult, it was up to her to make her own decisions, and that she did die because of her own choice to leave Alexandria. However, I still can't help but feel that Daryl should have done the right thing and made her stay behind. Moving on now to the Season 7 premiere, as Walking Dead viewers were treated to a moment of Mr. Dixon going full retard. With Negan taunting Rosita after the death of Abe, Daryl decided it was his moment to be a hero and save the day by delivering a right hook to the saviour leader. Negan, shocked by the sheer bravery he had just seen, decided to call it a day. He apologised to Rick and released everyone, and then drove off into the distance never to be seen again, and everyone lived happily ever after. The end. Of course, this scenario didn't happen at all. Instead, Negan proceeded to remind everyone that he did warn against any more outbursts, which to be fair to him is true, and then retaliated by shattering poor Glenn's skull. Honestly, I don't know what Daryl thought he would have possibly achieved by standing up and punching Negan. His group were completely surrounded and outnumbered, and there was no way that doing so would change anything for the better. Perhaps he simply wasn't thinking at all and instead just acted on his emotions, in which case I think he deserves to be chastised even more. Slays34737 mentioned in a comment on another video of mine earlier this week that they felt like Daryl didn't get any hate for causing Glenn's death. Now of course I'm sure that there were some people who were pissed at Daryl for what he did, but for the most part I actually agree with this statement. From what I can remember, Daryl got very little backlash at all for causing the death of a major character. Honestly, I feel that if someone like Rosita or Eugene had punched Negan, I know that Eugene would never punch someone, but let's just go with it, the amount of hate they would have received would have been tenfold. But for some unknown reason, Daryl just coasted on by, even though his decision to lash out at Negan was ridiculously dumb. And unfortunately, his dumb decisions didn't stop there. After escaping his cell at the Sanctuary, Daryl was offered asylum at the Kingdom and told to remain there by Rick. And what does he do? Well, he leaves the Sanctuary almost as soon as he arrives, even though he is wanted by Negan and could potentially put the entire community of Alexandria in jeopardy. Nice one, Daryl. Recently, his actions in Season 8 have been equally as baffling as some of those I've already mentioned. Killing Morales put an end to what could have been an interesting storyline before it even started, and his decision to leave during the Widow, the King and Rick to hunt down Dwight was for me the final straw that broke the camel's back. Why on earth is Daryl leaving Alexandria, putting himself as well as others at risk to kill Dwight, who is arguably Rick's greatest source of information at the moment? Not only that, Dwight is also the closest person to Negan who is allied with Rick. There's a possibility that if he found himself alone with Negan, he could potentially even kill him or incapacitate him. Yet Daryl decides now is the time Dwight needs to die of all times. It's a ridiculous plot point only put in so the showrunners can have Daryl at the Sanctuary for the mid-season premiere. And I still don't buy the idea that he is still being eaten up by Denise's death. The two of them never had a lot of screen time together, and it's not believable that he would care so much about her. Although it would have still been a dumb move, it would have made much more sense for Daryl to want to storm the Savior's HQ whilst it was surrounded by walkers to attempt to take down Negan. Negan has done a lot worse to Daryl than Dwight, and I would have found it more sensible if he decided that with him hiding in his base, now was the time to take him down and end the war. Of course, I get that everyone makes mistakes, certainly everyone on The Walking Dead seems to, but Daryl just appears to be making stupid choices constantly, and it's getting really annoying. Despite me focusing on some of the standout examples of Daryl's poor decision making, I feel that there is more than just bad choices to blame for his character getting worse. In my opinion, his descent into averageness started after he arrived at Alexandria. Since settling at the community, the writers really haven't seemed to know what to do with him, and as a viewer I can't really say we've learned anything new or interesting about him. In comparison, during his first few years on the show, we discovered a great deal about his character. His relationship with his brother Merle made for an intriguing watch, and learning about the abuse Daryl suffered at the hands of his father whilst his brother was gone was rather poignant and moving. I would say that after Beth died, Daryl has almost shut down and hasn't really been open with anyone. Admittedly, he wasn't a particularly open person anyway, but he was certainly more so than he is now. There was a brief snippet of him forming a friendship with Aaron when he first arrived at Alexandria. The two of them were still subject to being treated like outsiders, albeit for differing reasons, which caused the two of them to bond. Unfortunately, this only lasted for a few episodes before The Walking Dead gave up with this story strand completely. I would have actually liked to see the two of them spend more time together. Personally, I loved the scene in which Daryl ate spaghetti with Aaron and Eric. It was equally as endearing to watch as it was funny. Sadly, although the closed, angry, bitter man of few words Daryl that we have at the moment may be a hit with fangirls across the globe, for me I just find him to be a bit boring. I remember that I actually suggested to some of my friends that I would have liked to see Daryl die at the hands of Negan during the Season 7 premiere, because for me his story arc has reached its natural conclusion. A lot of people began to like the character of Daryl because of his badass attitude, but I feel that fans truly started to fall in love with him when he started to reveal more about who he was. At the moment I find him rather dull. There's no real substance to his appearances anymore. He just sort of shows up when there's a fight in an attempt to look cool, and then pisses off until he's needed to shoot someone again or ride a motorcycle. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I like Daryl, but I feel the reason I still like him is only because of how good his character was in the past. He's been a shadow of himself during the last few seasons, and although there may be narrative and creative reasons behind this, having him appear sulky and moody constantly doesn't make him interesting to watch. Combine this with his constant knack of performing stupid actions and you have a character who I find myself caring less and less about. If Daryl doesn't sort his shit out soon, I feel as though I'm going to forget what made me like him in the first place. So there you have it, my reasoning behind why I feel that Daryl Dixon has been getting progressively worse during the last couple of seasons. As always, please let me know your thoughts below, perhaps you agree with me or perhaps you completely disagree. And until next time, thank you very much for watching and goodbye.